Hello and welcome to Take 10 by Infor. In this video series, we are exploring timely and relevant strategies to come out of this unprecedented uncertainty smarter and stronger. I am Dirk Beveridge, founder of UnleashWD, and today I have with me Mike Mazzoni, Solutions Consulting Manager at Infor. Michael, great to be with you again, bud.
Hey, Dirk, great to see you. Looking forward to the conversation.
As always, absolutely. Today we're discussing the opportunity in bringing a pricing discipline to our businesses. And Mike, as I think about this, I think about the degrees in which a strategic pricing discipline can support an organization. One of our clients, a mid-market industrial distributor, in fact, used strategic pricing to fund their digital transformation. They knew that they needed to become a digital distributor. They knew they needed a digital-first strategy, which required digital transformation. But all that takes resources and funding. Where were those dollars going to come from? They were thinking. What they found was that by beginning with a pricing discipline, again, pricing science is not rocket science. They were able to take those dollars that flowed right to the bottom line and to allocate those dollars to fund their digital transformation strategy. Pretty cool, I think. Which brings me to my premise for today. My premise is pricing discipline does more than add to the bottom line. It can be a significant driver of growth as well. Mike, I'd love your initial thoughts. Do you agree with my premise?
Well, absolutely. And I think just to reiterate what you're saying, I mean, there are always challenges that come as we look at our growth initiatives, right? And those can be resource challenges, resource constraints. They can be technology. Do we have the right technology in place? And pricing optimization, yes, it's more than the bottom line because those additional dollars are what are going to help us to alleviate those constraints, really to make sure we have the resources, make sure we have the technology to implement and to grow.
I love it. And, we're talking about emerging smarter and stronger and thinking about how to use these newfound dollars, if I can say that strategically, right? To emerge smarter and stronger, I think is absolutely brilliant. Now, I also believe that you have found that many businesses, in fact, leave significant dollars on the table as a result of this lack of pricing discipline. Is that right?
Absolutely. And so I think if we look historically, there are some learned behaviors in the distribution industry. And really specifically, I think distributors and in particular, their users, their salespeople, have this mindset that the margin needs to be at a certain level. This is where we need to be competitive in the market, whether that's 20% gross margin, 30%, whatever it is, that's our level. Unfortunately, that's not optimized profitability, right? That's kind of driven by what we refer to as margin guilt. Geez, I can't charge more for these products. This is the margin we're at. We need to get past that. We need to get past that margin guilt and understand that different customers with different product lines or different market segments are going to behave differently. And really, we need to look for those opportunities to optimize and really implement more pricing discipline across the organization to understand, how that's going to benefit that bottom line we were talking about.
Well, I love that. I love the concept of margin guilt, right? And needing to really think strategically and maybe use technology to look for those areas of optimization. And I've heard you talk about this concept of the power of 1% as we're looking to optimize the power of 1%. Can you share what you mean by this thought of the power of 1%?
Yeah, and this is one of those concepts that I think actually kind of spans the organization, right? The power of 1%, if we could reduce our AR days by 1%, if we could reduce our inventory by 1%, if we could increase our customer service levels, our fill rates by 1%, what would the impact be on the organization? We know those are big opportunities. A lot of times, though, those are kind of soft costs or soft savings, right? Where it's just going to help us to be more efficient as an organization. When we look at the power of 1% when it comes to pricing and pricing optimization, these are real dollars. Now, unfortunately, what happens is when we sit and we look at a single line item on a single sales order or a single invoice, and we say, well, what would 1% gross margin change do to the profitability of that line item? it's insignificant. It looks like nothing. It's pennies, right? Or maybe dollars. Now, if we take that same 1% and we compound it over a year, all of a sudden we're talking about hundreds of thousands or really millions of dollars of potential. And so it's a small amount, but we need to think about that from a larger perspective. We need to think about how is that going to impact my overall profitability across my entire organization. And so again, that 1%, keep that in the back of your mind. And again, maybe that's something when we talk about that pricing discipline and that margin guilt, that's something where we need to shift that learned behavior that's been implemented over the years. We need to have our employees have a better understanding of what that 1% truly means.
Yeah, I love that. And let's go there a little bit deeper too, if you don't mind, okay? Because you really, in terms of this optimization, and then you also talked about a little bit about segments and product sensitivity and the like, the opportunities in that. Can you talk about this power of segment and or product sensitivity as we're thinking about a pricing discipline as well?
For sure. And I think what you're referring to is how we look at our customer base, how we group those customers together to optimize, how we work with them. And I think, as we talk about, some of the trends we're seeing in distribution, we've already talked about growth, those strategic growth initiatives. And there's a few different ways to look at that, right? Are distributors looking to get into new market segments? Are they looking to introduce new product lines to their existing customer base? Are they looking to grow from a geographic perspective? Well, now all of a sudden, when we think about our customers, we need to think about them not only as a whole across the organization, but we need to think about how they behave within each of these different variables. That same customer, that traditional customer we have and we've sold, our traditional product lines, or in our original geographies, that same customer is not necessarily going to behave the same when we introduce new product lines, when we expand to new geographies. So now we need to be able to take and understand that, to take all the information, all the great data that we have, and really understand how does that customer behave across these different variables. Once we do that, now we can start to look at becoming more granular with regards to how we optimize profitability, how do we optimize pricing with those customers. And you talk about sensitivity, that's a big word here, right? We understand that our customers, that distributors understand that their customers are going to be more sensitive with certain products. The products that they're coming in, they're buying every day. Yes, we need to be more competitive. We know they're aware of what the market can bear in terms of pricing, but there are other products that we offer that they're not as sensitive. They don't have that visibility into kind of what the market is saying. Those are often the opportunities to optimize that profitability. So a couple of things here, right? Are we looking at our customers and understanding the behavior, not just across the organization, but within the different segments, within the different product lines that we carry? And are we understanding, where they're sensitive, where they're less sensitive, and really less sensitive is where we want to focus in terms of looking to optimize profitability.
Boy, I love it, Michael. And, obviously the opportunities for all of our businesses are there, right? My question going through my mind now and listening to you is how difficult is this, right? Does it have to be hard? I heard in a conversation that we had maybe a month ago or so, you talked about, pricing science is not rocket science and that we can get started with this. I'd love your thinking on that, please.
Well, the great news is that distributors have all of the information. They have the data that they need to make better decisions. And they have that data just because they run their business every day, taking hundreds or even thousands of sales orders. We're processing those through pick, pack, and ship, invoice the customer. We're collecting payments from the customers. We're posting cash, right? We've got all this great data that's just sitting in kind of, I call it our sales history file. How can we now take advantage of all this great data and start to better understand it? And so here's where technology can come into play. So at Infor, we have solutions like pricing science for distribution, which really can now help me to accumulate all that data, rank or weight what's more important to me, what's less important to me in terms of how the customer behaves, their loyalty components, right? Do they pay on time? Do they return products? Do they do a bunch of small orders? All this stuff's just sitting there. Now, pricing science can help us to better understand that and can guide us towards making better decisions with regards to how do we segment, how do we group those. It can help me to understand where those sensitivity levels are, and ultimately, these tools can help me to actually make recommendations for me around where those margins should be based on the variables we discussed. On top of that, technology can go even further. And so we have tools at Infor that can actually make dynamic pricing recommendations while I'm sitting there and entering these quotes and sales orders into the system for my customer. So as we start to think about the concepts of artificial intelligence and machine learning, really what that is, it's the ability to consume all of this great data, this great information that we've got, crunch the numbers, and make a real-time recommendation to me as I'm working with the customer around where that price level should be. This is what technology can bring, and these are the elements that are going to help me to optimize that profitability and to kind of come back to what we were talking about, to really find that one margin point that's going to have that huge impact on the bottom line.
Boy, I love it. I love it, Mike. I got to tell you, though, I'm thinking that this pricing discipline, it is rocket science, but Infor has built the booster that allows us to get started with it, man. So, hey, I really appreciate the insights and the conversation here today. I always learn from you. And, pricing discipline is there within all of our graphs. And it does obviously add to that bottom line, as you say, as we're thinking about that 1%. And as we learned from that story I started off with, it can also be utilized as a significant driver of growth. So, Michael, thank you. And thank you all for joining us on Take 10 by Infor.